Welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrave. I'm Mission Commander Vikram. Joining me for this podcast is Mission Specialist Dr. Veena.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Vina,
So it's just two
aka
of
Vina.
us here. Yeah. If you only need two actors to make Gravity, you don't need too many people to do a podcast also. So
Okay.
having more people talking about the movie than than the people in the movie.
You're forgetting the Apu-like astronaut who gets off in the first.
Oh, spoilers alert! Did
I
they
don't
show
think it's
him?
any. It's no surprise to anyone if you see an ethnic minority character with no close-up that he's gonna die in the first 10 minutes.
I wonder if, and now I'm trying to remember if they show him in the trailers. No, they don't show him in the trailers, right? They keep
I
that
actually met the
secret.
guy at the after party and I didn't realize he was in the movie.
Is he a famous actor there? Do you see him in like TV shows and stuff?
No, I mean he's like a very minor character in the BBC flagship soap opera, which I don't
Hmm.
watch.
Okay.
But, so he was at the after party and like no one was talking to him because they just thought he was some C-list soap opera person, not realizing he's the third astronaut, which is really tragic. But there you go.
Anyways, if you guys haven't guessed it, we are talking about the movie Gravity, and we'll try keep it spoiler free for the first few minutes, and then switch over to the spoiler free discussion. But before we start talking about the movie, I just wanted to comment on how well Bina's podcast, her 10-minute movie review podcast, is doing. Her Wolverine review was downloaded like 2,300 times, Rush 1,400 times, Kick-Ass 1,200 times, and her review on Gravity is like downloaded like 860 times. It's pretty awesome how well it's doing.
It's bizarre, isn't it? So like my movie review podcast is like an offshoot of an offshoot of an offshoot because it was only after doing Vassals of Kingsgrave that I started doing that. So
Mm.
it's this is Amin's vision taking off in extremis, I guess.
Yeah, it's awesome. And as we were chatting earlier, do you know what's happening, where it's coming from? Why? I mean, it's not all your podcasts are doing well, and I mean, not well. I mean, Nebraska, I think a review you did, and it's a movie I think you liked, really liked, and it's probably only got like 8 downloads, and then next to it is Gravity, and that gets 860 downloads. So it's like very. What do you think? What's the theory?
I think I mean, things like Nebraska, I reviewed just because it was at the film festival, but that's not out in cinemas for ages. So
Mm,
maybe nearer the time it might pick up.
mhm,
So I think there's certainly you can be a bit more clever about the timing. When I put the Gravity podcast up,
mhm,
no one else had reviewed it even in print in the UK. So it was kind of like the only review anyone could get. Plus, it was coming out very quickly afterwards. But
mm.
it's weird, right? Because like some of the art house movies get a good amount of downloads, some mainstream. It's really, I find it quite hard to predict.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
think that the ideal is to release it about a week before the movie comes out when the hype's
mm.
building. But I've got no.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like my guess for the longest time has been that maybe these movies are done by a well-known filmmaker or have well-known actors in them, and but Loveless and Fifth Estate, they only got like 200 downloads. I mean, it's considerable. I mean, come on, I'll be happy to have a VOK podcast that has 200 downloads. But yeah, compared to like Rush, I mean, I guess Benedict Cumberbatch is like, is equal to any Thor. So,
Well, I think it's which movies bomb, and I think I
uh
reckon my download count is a really good lead indicator for whether movies will make money, because like
mm,
Pacific Rim and Wolverine I put out at the same time, and Wolverine exploded, and Pacific Rim did like very few downloads, and it's really funny how that keeps on like in the WikiLeaks movie again had no downloads, and I thought that
mhm.
movie is going to bomb. It comes out a week later in the US and it bombs. So it's
Oh,
kind of
it's
really interesting.
it.
You can tell the hype. You can tell what's going to win and what isn't. So
Wait, Fifth Estate is already in the theaters. I missed it.
I think it's
Uh,
already out did it? I know it came out after the UK, but I think it might already be out in the US because it
okay.
came out this week and bombed.
Yeah. I
Super
see.
limited release. I think
Yeah.
it got killed by gravity, basically.
I see that a theater in my town is playing Blue Jasmine. I want to check that out. Blue Jasmine did really well on your thing also. I think it's got like 1,000 downloads. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
but I
kind of
think that's
keen on
got
seeing
Oscar
that one.
buzz. I mean, you can definitely
Ah.
tell Oscar buzz movies get more. And the majority of the traffic to my movie review podcast comes via IMDb Pro, so
Mhm.
it tends to be like insiders. So I guess they're going by like sort of award buzz, maybe.
Yeah,
It's hard to tell.
you're speculating that Sandra Bullock's and then Kate Beckinsale. No, crap, I forgot her actress name. Blue Jasmine actress name.
Kate
Kate
Blanchett.
Blanchett.
I can't believe you confused Kate Beckinsale with Kate Blanchett. Actually,
Sorry,
I have a
sorry.
story about meeting Kate Beckinsale on a flight from London to Heathrow.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and she was totally, totally charming. We were on this overnight flight and there was this small screaming baby. And like my instant reaction is someone kill the baby. And she was so lovely. She just went up to the parents, took the baby, was like comforting it, took it for a walk, blah, blah, blah. I mean, she was just so lovely. So, but I did tweet to all my friends. I was like, guess who I slept next to this evening? Kate Beckinsale.
Wow.
There you go. Sorry, name dropping horribly.
That's fine. So, who do you speculate is going to win the Oscar? Sandra Bullock or Kate Blanchett?
Well, we haven't seen all the Oscar bait movies. I think between the two of them, Kate Blanchett gives the better performance, but the Oscar voters do love Sandra Bullock. And I
Hmm.
think Gravity just has so much hype at the moment. And what really makes me think Sandra Bullock might win it is the other kind of movie that's getting hype is 12 Years a Slave, but there isn't a strong leading female performance. Actually, there is, but I think they'll be clever and put that actress in as supporting actress so that
Hmm.
she's not up against Sandra Bullock.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Cool. And I also thought since you have been to the London Film Festival and your coverage on your blog has just been like insane. I think in a span of like 10 days, you posted like 35 posts, 35 movie reviews, and few of them are actually audio podcasts too. So it's just like insane. So what's the best movie you've seen at the festival?
I think for mainstream Gravity, we'll talk about it as one of the best.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Slightly less mainstream, but still really accessible, is the new film by Alexander Payne, who did Sideways and The Descendants, and it's called Nebraska, and it's this really funny, kind of really moving kind of family comedy drama about this old guy and his son who they go on like this road trip, and I don't know how to describe it, but it's just really affected me. And then in terms of the more art house stuff, there was an amazing film called Ida by a British Polish director called Paweł Pawlowski. It's black and white. It's set in Poland in the 60s about this very unhappy young nun who goes in search of her, or the reality of her real parents. Really bleak, really art house, like classic, sort of hard to access, but really affecting. And then the one movie, like all my friends who also review films, the one, when you say to them, what are your top 5 films of the festival? The one movie we all had in common was a film called Under the Skin, where if I tell you the concept, you're going to laugh at me. It's basically Scarlett Johansson plays this alien fembot who lands in Scotland, in a small town in Scotland, and starts like seducing men to their death, which sounds really stupid, but it's actually this really bizarre, really moving kind of art house movie, and she's amazing. She should really get the Oscar, but she probably won't. So people should check that out.
Excellent, excellent. The movies I kind of had an eye on were the Fifth Estate, the WikiLeaks movie, and then Don John. And Don John seems to have done. It seems to be a good movie. I read your review.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Don John. I mean, Scarlett Johansson, again, she's amazing in that. She puts on this real kind of Jersey Shore accent, which is just hilarious balls. Yeah, and I really love the direction by, it's the debut film. So for Joseph Gordon-Levitt, so that was
Hmm.
really, really interesting. I think it's just hard for a more mainstream romantic comedy to stand out at a festival,
Uh,
maybe. But really, actually, for me this year was more about the disappointments. Like, I loved the Coen brothers, and I was really looking forward to Inside Llewyn Davis, the kind of Coen
hmm.
brothers folk music film. That was really disappointing. And I really just didn't connect to 12 Years a Slave. And yet everybody else seems to think it's like, it was the only film at the festival that I saw that got a standing ovation.
Oh
And it was
wow.
me. And there was me and my cousin sitting there looking at each other going, is it just us? So, yeah, those were the two I thought would really move me, and they kind of didn't. So.
Excellent, excellent. So, wow. Anything else we want to talk about the film festival? Oh yeah. So, have you met any famous celebrities and stuff like that? The after parties
Um,
and things like that.
Who did we meet? What was the opening night movie? I had Tom Hanks. Oh, that's it, Captain Phillips. So Tom
Okay.
Hanks was there, and Julian Fellowes, who writes Downton Abbey, and his wife, who's like a real aristocrat wearing a turban, which was just insane. And also Tom Ford, the designer. And what was really weird is like he was sitting in the row in front of us, and I said to my friend, "Oh, look, there's a guy who thinks he's Tom Ford, but just looks really old and crusty." Because you forget that in the magazines they get photoshopped. I didn't realize it was him at first. Didn't meet Sandra Bullock because she didn't go to the after party. Met the third astronaut, who we can talk about later. Uh, at the Philomena premiere, we met Dame Judi Dench and Steve Coogan, which was
Okay.
kind of cool, and their families, because for some reason we hated the film so much we got to the after party really early, and we were in an area that then kind of became the VIP area, but we kind of got in before it got roped off, which was cool. And who else? I'm trying to think. Closing night, Tom Hanks again, and oh god, Colin Farrell.
Oh, okay.
Lily Allen. Lily Allen was sitting on our row. I don't know if she's famous in the US. And she left her mobile phone, and my friend had to give it back to her. But
Okay.
in general, you say meet, it's kind of like,
Yeah,
you
you
know,
just see them and yeah.
you see them and say one line. You don't really have like long, meaningful conversations with these people, but it's still quite cool.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Okay.
Who I didn't meet was George Clooney because he didn't turn up to the Gravity premiere. Now that sucked. All the ladies were very disappointed at that. And also, Michael Fassbender didn't turn up for 12 Years a Slave.
Mm.
So
Yes.
there was a lack of male talent on show, I would say.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so let's start with Gravity, movie by Alfonso Cuarón. I don't know how you say it. I'm going with
I don't know.
Cuarón.
Corone.
Q.
I don't know how you say it, but I don't think that's how you say it.
Yeah, sorry anybody from Mexico, please don't be offended.
That's cool.
Hey, in India we said jalapeno, we don't say jalapenos. I only started saying jalapenos after coming here, so that's how disconnected I am. So yeah, so a movie by Alfonso Cuarón,
Corone.
and yeah, the only other movie I knew, the two other movies I knew of is Children of Men and of course Harry Potter's Prisoner of Azkaban.
Which arguably I think is the best Harry Potter because it's so dark and
Mm.
gloomy.
No, I like that. That's the one where you had the kind of time travel thing going on towards the end. Oops, spoilers.
It's also, I mean, Children of Men, I think, is like probably one of the best standalone not sci-fi, kind of, yeah, is it science fiction? I guess it kind of is.
Yeah, I mean, the premise of it was so interesting, you know. I mean, I thought the movie was okay, but the premise was just fantastic.
Oh, I really loved it. I loved Clive Owen in that. It's probably the last great film he did.
Yeah. After that, he did King Arthur, and he went down that path.
I think the
B-grade
basically
movies
with
fan.
Clive Owen not getting James Bond just killed his career.
Oh, okay. I didn't know he was one of the contenders. Okay.
Yeah, he was talked about for ages, and he was really the second, the
Mm,
runner-up to Daniel Craig, which is a shame.
yeah. Okay.
Um,
So
yeah.
how many, I don't know, debris would you give? No, debris sounds bad. So, oh well, how many
We
space
can
lemon
stick with
cakes?
lemon. We can stick with lemon cakes.
How many, how many
How
space
many
lemon?
canisters of oxygen would you give this movie?
I would give it 5 out of 5. This is like the most excellent movie I've ever seen. I mean, just made it's just all around perfect for me. I went around and saw it twice. Was lucky enough that I decided to go see it in IMAX 3D, and I never actually do watch. You know, I never kind of, I buy into the hype and of things like that. You know, IMAX 3D, it's 40 frames per second and all that. But this movie really used it. How about you, Bina?
I think, I'd probably be a little bit more skeptical and maybe give it a 4 out of 5,
Okay.
just because I think it's visually spectacular, but maybe when you really sit back and think about it, it's quite thin in some ways and quite obvious. But
Uh-huh.
I think technologically it's a marvel. And I agree, I'm usually a bit of a cynic about paying the extra money for IMAX. But
Hmm.
if any movie is made to be seen in IMAX for an immersive experience, it has to be this one. So people should try and check it out.
Yeah, I would kind of compare it more with a roller coaster than a movie in some ways. I mean, I kind of knew the premise, the way the trailers were shot and shown. It's kind of like, the point of view kind of thing. And so I kind of knew, I was expecting that, although I kind of only expected that to be like only like a 10% of the movie or 20% of the movie, and then it being a regular movie after that. And I was kind of worried there was going to be like a documentary-esque movie about saving people in space or whatever, but it's like, that kind of surprised me that it wasn't that. It had a decent story to it, and the story was just perfect. It wasn't too sentimental, too melodramatic, just enough to kind of make it not seem like a documentary.
But I mean, and I really admire Alfonso Cuarón for keeping it that pure because it's a short movie, right? It's like
Mm,
under 90 minutes,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he never cuts away from the action in space. So apparently, there was lots of pressure from the studio to like cut back to an air base in Houston to show some people on the ground getting worried about these astronauts who are in trouble. And there
Yeah.
was a lot of pressure on him to cut back maybe to flashbacks of Sandra Bullock's character and her earlier life with her family to sort
Uh-huh.
of make the emotion really obvious that there are people back there waiting for them. And Alfonso was like, no, I want to keep it in space. I want to keep it pure. I don't want it to be about the classic kind of Apollo 13 thing. I just want it to be this
Exactly.
woman and her battle to survive in space. And for it to be an emotional battle rather than psychological, like, does she really want to survive rather than oh, if these guys in Houston can just give her the right codes, she can get home. And brilliant. Superb. I mean, it's such a good concept. It's so
Yeah,
pure.
yeah, right. I mean, in some ways, technically, this is definitely a very hard movie to shoot. But story-wise and the concept-wise, it's pretty simple. Just disaster happens, and then stick with the astronauts for 90 minutes as they figure things out and get back to Earth. I mean, such a simple concept, and and it's so minimalist also, right? I mean, just two actors. I mean, you had Ed Harris as the voice from Houston, and you had a couple more actors, but basically it was just two of them, Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, the whole time. It's yeah, it's just
And
brilliant.
really, just even purer than that, it's basically Sandra Bullock for the majority of it.
Uh-huh.
And it kind of reminds me because like I'd seen Captain Phillips, I think 2 nights before, which again, I mean, there's a few other characters, but it's basically just him for the majority of the movie. And it just made me think that in a way they're very similar, that the whole point of these movies is you have these two people who are basically quite ordinary, but facing really extraordinary circumstances. And what keeps your attention is that, they're both actors who are well known for just being kind of charming.
Mm-hmm.
They're just kind of boy or girl next door, now man or woman next door. But you really, I don't know, they just have this, there's just something about them that's just really charming. They really, you want them to survive. And that's what, I don't know if these movies would have worked with anyone else in them. I mean, if
Exactly.
someone else was in the Sandra Bullock role, would it have worked? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So she just does an amazing job.
Yeah, they were just perfect. I couldn't picture anybody else. Would a young kid would have worked, or would a guy similar, would another guy in the same role would have worked? No, it had to be her. It had to be, that character. No younger, no older. She was just perfect, perfect.
Yeah.
Um, Anything else? Can we talk, keeping it spoiler free, or shall we jump into spoilers?
I
Hmm.
mean, I suppose in the spoiler-free thing, we can probably talk a bit about themes and the idea that,
Ah.
everyone will, if you haven't seen it yet and you're wondering whether to see it, and you keep hearing everyone say it's this visual spectacle, you think, okay. There is a lot of really deep and meaningful stuff about, I don't know how to say it, what is life about? What are you living for? A lot of, as Valkyrist, who's not on the call, but another guy from the forums was pointing out, there's a lot of sort of childbirth imagery. There's a lot of real profound intellectual stuff. It's not just about seeing, oh my God, cool CGI effects. So you shouldn't be worried. There's a lot of heart to this movie.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I'm not really that intellectual of a person, so I did not get any of that, but the visuals were just enough for me, and I think that's the thing about this movie. It's as graphically awesome as like a Transformer movie, but as not dumbed down. And people are kind of smart and kind of pick out those subtle things. They can read all those subtle things from it. So it's a movie that caters to kind of everybody, right? I mean, if you're just there, like, hey, this is a cool roller coaster ride, they find it awesome, and for for a kind of artsy movie kind of way, it's also good enough too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the perfect, yeah, sort of mix of art house and mainstream, and it's totally accessible, but it's so artful.
Yeah.
So I think it's just an amazing film, and I hope it gets all the awards it deserves.
So yeah, so did it do well at the film festival, or so what kind of was like the most kind of what people were talking about? Which movie were people talking about it at the end of the day? I think 12 Years as a Slave, that seems to be one of the big ones,
Yeah,
right?
12 Years a Slave. It was the movie that got the standing ovation, the only
Hmm.
pure standing ovation. Because London isn't like Cannes. Cannes people are really, the French are probably a bit more demonstrative than the British. So at Cannes people applaud and stand up and applaud, and if they hate it, they boo and they hiss and they throw shit at the screen.
Oh,
Whereas
really? Okay.
London, yeah, we're kind of even, and we just politely applaud for everything sitting down. But people were standing up for 12 Years a Slave. People
Uh,
really loved Under the Skin. People really loved Blue is the Warmest Color, which is the movie that won the Cannes Palme d'Or about the sort of lesbian relationship. But
mhm.
yeah, Gravity wasn't. I mean, everyone was saying, yeah, it's great, but quite mainstream. They weren't saying, film festivals is a bit of snobbery, right? You're not allowed to like the easy stuff. But people did like it, but they weren't maybe raving about it.
Okay.
I would say. And they're also not the classic sci-fi crowd. They're more the kind of, we want to watch some deep and meaningful Iranian art house film kind of. So, yeah.
Okay, so let's jump into spoiler filled discussion, guys. So I'll just put a music thing here just to kind of give people a few seconds to pause or end the podcast.
Beautiful, don't you think?
What?
The sunrise.
Terrific.
Houston, Dr. Stone is off structure. Listen to my voice. You need to phone. I'm losing visual of you.
I'm spinning! I can't breathe!
Grab a hole. Grab anything.
What do I do? What do I do?
So anyway, the first thing I did after I got home after watching the movie is to look up and see if the Chinese actually had a space station. And the Chinese don't have one. They plan to have one by 2020, but nothing at the moment though.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not necessarily a movie that's set in contemporary. I mean, it's quite timeless in a way, I think, as a film.
Yeah, that's true.
Although there's a little bit of Cold War craziness going on because, like, if we start from the beginning, the movie opens with these three astronauts, I guess, repairing a space shuttle or something. So there's
The Hubble telescope, right? Which is
Yeah,
probably
so there's-
no, it's probably not obsolete yet, but it's kind of the Keplers and the other ones are the more new space telescopes.
Yeah, so it's like the sort of Millennium Falcon of telescopes. It's a bit bashed up. So there's the Sandra Bullock woman who's really sort of space sick, and it's her first flight, and she's very nervous. There's George Clooney, who's just basically playing himself as this very charming astronaut who owns space. He's very confident. And then there's this like Apu from The Simpsons. Which, does it piss you off? Like, okay, let's have an Indian astronaut and let's give him a really heavy accent and let's make him like really technologically sound, but fundamentally we don't give a shit about him, so we're gonna kill
It's like
him.
the movie shouted out at all the all the leading countries in space right now. I mean, there's the Americans, of course, the Russians, the Chinese, and now India, one of the upcoming space powers, I guess. Even a shout out to them. The only people they probably left out is ESA for some reason, the European agency. But it's kind of nice to
You
have.
don't have an easily caricatured accent. I actually did find it quite annoying when they killed off the Indian astronaut. And then, like, when I met the actor, when I realized that the actor was actually from London, I was just like, so why did they have to give him this like Apu from The Simpsons, like really cliched Indian accent? It was just, that's kind of slightly pissed me off. I thought that was a bit of a cheap kind of
But that worked so well, I mean, kind of showing a guy dying and then Sandra Bullock's like floating into space, without any, and you kind of think and kind of showed the danger of the entire thing. Kind of set up the stakes, I guess. What could happen here, if people are not careful, or for the rest of the movie. And so for the rest of the movie, when she's like trying to get aboard the International Space Station and she's like jumping from one rung to another, and it goes into this point of view mode, and you kind of see her miss a rung and kind of start floating away. Immediately she catches another one, so kind of it sets up the stakes. It kind of sets up the risk here, and,
Oh
and
yeah,
that
yeah.
was so
I mean,
well, putting the risk in chin. This is what could happen, dude. You can get hit
I
by
do. I
space debris in your
completely
face.
agree. They have to show the stakes at the start so that you
Yeah.
invest in their journey. Why
Yeah.
does it have to be an ethnic minority that gets off? That's all I'm saying. It's like Star Trek, it's the African American guy in the red sweater. And he ain't coming back from that mission to that exotic planet. That's all I'm saying. Because I just don't think it's a spoiler that that guy gets killed. It's very obvious from the fact that he's Indian. He's getting killed. But you're right. And what amazed me actually in the film is there's so little time on that setup. I mean, that whole sequence
Just
between the
started, right?
opening and that guy dying is like, what, 5 minutes? So
Mm.
you get 5 minutes of peace, and then the movie is just all hell breaks loose and it doesn't stop for 90 minutes.
Yeah,
Which is
and just the thing about, they're overcoming a challenge after another, and they just keep getting thrown more stuff, more curveballs, more stuff that doesn't go right, and they just keep overcoming it, and Sandra Bullock just keeps overcoming it, and that's just awesome. It was.
But I think what
Yeah.
the movie gets right is just at the point when you're like, oh, come on, how can another thing go wrong? It gives you that moment when she's ejected into that escape pod or whatever it is, where it just gives you a moment and a quiet, and it gives her a moment of reflection. And so you've just been having this frenetic action. She gets to the station, she gets to this, it's on fire. She needs to escape that. And you're just about feeling, I really can't take any more of this tension. And it's like just at that moment, they put in that very quiet interlude where the movie gets very philosophical and very internalized. Like, does she even want to live at this point? Does she even have?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but when, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I kind of loved all those things that went wrong because, like seeing like the fire, the International Space Station catch on fire. That was so beautiful. You could see the fire was like moving around, like it was kind of like sea. I mean, the way the fire behaved in the space station was just beautiful. And then what else? The parachute scene where she was trying to escape from the International Space Station on her Soyuz, and the parachute got stuck to it, and she's kind of trying to do that. Even that was such a beautifully done. It was visually all these were like rewarding. So
It
that
looks
kind of
amazing.
detached you a bit. Oh, cool, cool, cool.
That was in a way my problem, that it looked amazing, but it just kept on being, okay, there's this disaster, and it just felt like, oh, okay, they're throwing things at her now to make it look cool, but it just made it a little bit unrealistic. Like, she's on her first flight, is she really going to keep it together to get through XYZ ABC? And then that's why I like the fact that they took it to that moment of complete, she's just weary and she's fed up. Because I thought, yeah, you would be, your life's been turned upside down. And that center, whatever it is, 15 minutes sequence where she's really, trying to get her will to live, I think is one of the most powerful pieces of acting.
Yeah, and it was so well done, bringing George Clooney back, using it as a kind of illusion, kind of so visually showed us what was going in her head. How did she come back from it? How did she rally from it? Instead of just some monologue or something, or a flashback. That was very well done. I mean, that was very smart writing, I thought, because
when
I would
George
have
Clooney-
given up. I would have like, okay, this is enough. Enough shit here. I got into space. I'm famous already. Let me die.
So when George Clooney comes back, did you realize it was her having a sort of delusional vision?
No,
Was
no, I kind of was disappointed. Come, here's George Clooney back, the hero saves
Me
the day,
too.
the damsel in distress. I was so disappointed, and yeah,
Because I like turned to like the person I was watching the movie with, and I was like, oh my god, this movie just jumped the shark. I can't believe they did something so lame.
Yeah,
And then when it turned out he wasn't, I was like, oh thank Christ for that.
yeah, right. I mean, at first I was like, "What a jerk!" He kind of what's it? He vented the atmosphere from the spacecraft. Now she's probably dead and everything. And then he comes back in, closes it up, and she's all fine. I'm like, what's happening here?
Yeah, exactly. So, but it was really nicely done. It was and yeah, very moving. It's kind of like at the end of Captain Phillips, like after it's weird in that film they have the 5 minutes of calm at the end of the film, and at the end of the film, without spoiling it, there's this again. The strongest bit of the Tom Hanks acting is in that moment where you really see his character weary and tired, and I think for both of them actually. They're spectacular. That's probably like some of the best acting I've seen Sandra Bullock do, because she's popular and whatnot, and she wins Oscars, but she's not someone who I would say has ever like massively impressed me.
I think
She's
the
more
last
likable.
movie of hers I saw was Speed 2 or something.
Yeah, in fairness to her, she's done better work than Speed 2. But even in The Blind Side, which I love as a movie, it's just such a punchy character rather than like nuanced acting. And I think here in those 15 minutes, I reckon it's a career best for her.
So, do you think 20 years from now we can expect the same level of acting from Megan Fox?
I don't know. I've got time for Megan Fox.
Oh, okay.
I've got time for Megan Fox. I think she's been unfairly screwed over by Michael Bay. Like after she went media rogue on him, he basically ended her career. But if you look at her lifestyle choices, I think she's one of these people that people unfairly judge because of the way she looks and the first movie that she did.
Yeah, that's true. I'm probably like clumping her with Britney Spears and Paris Hilton's and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to go all out on a limb and say something absurd, which is I wouldn't be surprised to see her reinvent herself in a few years' time when her kids are a bit older, in the way that Matthew McConaughey has. Like Matthew McConaughey used to be this like bronzed, muscled beefcake idiot who just did shitty rom-coms, and now he's the indie movie darling. Dallas Buyers Club, The Paperboy, all these really amazing. Mud, one of the best films of the year so far, and then Matthew McConaughey in art house mode, acting brilliantly. So never write people off.
That's true. Yeah. Fair.
Even Victorian, don't write him off. He could have inner depth, y'all. I've been seeing what's going down on those forums.
That's how he feels about the monkeys. Yeah, it's just fun. Yeah. If anybody's haven't guessed, don't know what we are talking about, please don't mind us. If you can, come by the forums and you know what we are talking about.
Yeah, we should mention that the Vassals of Kingsgrave exists because there's a podcast of Ice and Fire, which is an award-winning podcast about Song of Ice and Fire and occasionally Game of Thrones. So that's why you'll occasionally have George R. R. Martin style name dropping all the way through. But if you know what we are talking about, you should definitely check out that podcast because you will get more of it.
So what else do I want to talk about? Kind of only the space stuff, I guess. I mean, it was so cool that it did not invent any new sci-fi spacecraft. It's all space shuttles, Soyuz, Shenzhou, the Chinese thing, and. So, I mean, the Chinese spacecraft is fictional, I guess. But everything else is like real world stuff. So it was really cool seeing all your familiar spacecrafts there. And yeah, I liked how, real world it was.
Yeah, it was just immaculately well done. But I strongly believe that in 20 years' time, the reason why people will watch this film is not because of the vis effects, because they will inevitably be surpassed. They'll watch it because of the depth, the psychological depth of it, and I'll watch it because of the imagery and the themes of, a lot of the birth imagery, a lot of the idea of, you can see this whole movie as an elaborate allegory for someone who's deeply depressed or someone who's sort of deeply in grief, I guess more accurately, because actually if you've got clinical depression, you can't just pull yourself out of it. That's a cliche. But it's for someone who's deeply in grief and decides to push through that, to will herself to survive. And, all those kind of images of her basically in fetal position, and emerging from the water, like putting her first foot on the ground, almost like evolution, right? I mean, there's a lot of deep meaning. It felt to me like a movie. Prometheus was trying to have that kind of level of depth about evolution and all that kind of stuff, and just failed miserably.
I mean, there's so many ways you can read that scene, right? I mean, her crawling out of the water or the lake or a river onto the beach, and as you kind of related to evolution, for me it was her the thing before kind of she's standing up, or her grabbing the soil or something, felt so she won. She got back to earth in one piece. There's so many ways you can take that. For me, it was.
And also,
she made it
she's
back.
going to stand.
She's at the
standing
finish
on her own
line.
2 feet.
Exactly.
It's
And
very
the
much
way.
about
And the
empowerment,
way the camera is positioned also, right? It's kind of from bottom up, so you kind of see her standing tall, looking at the sky. Wow, it's all kind of brilliant.
It's also worth pointing out that, Sandra Bullock evidently did a lot of physical training for this role. She looks impeccable, but it's kind of nice to see this image of a woman, and they've given her that kind of Ripley-like short hair. So it's very much, this vision of a woman who's very physically strong and powerful, but psychologically getting herself to that position of strength to equal her physique, that she's going to stand on her own 2 feet and survive. And it's just wonderful, right? To see a woman of that age in a Hollywood mainstream movie. Basically, sisters are doing it for themselves, right? And that's rare. I don't think Sandra Bullock's going to get many parts like that coming out.
Oh, I have a correction to make. I was wrong. Sorry. The Chinese do have a space station. It's called the Tiangong, which is Chinese for Heavenly Palace One. But it's not as elaborate as you see in the movie. It's just like a capsule with like solar panels stuck on it. It's just like it's very small. It's nothing like the movies. But the Chinese do have one. Sorry, any Chinese
I'm
space
amazed
agency.
they don't have better than that. You would have thought the Chinese would have been all over that shit. You'd have thought.
Yeah. It's kind of in a way, the Chinese save the day at the end of the movie, but then they kind of pass on remarks saying, "Hey, the Shenzhou is just like the Soviets; it's a copy."
I think the point is that nobody saves the day; she saves herself.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Although if there's an evil villain in the movie, I guess it's the Russians, because they're the ones who mysteriously decide to blow up one of their satellites that causes the chain reaction whereby shit goes down.
I'm surprised they should have named it at North Korea or something.
Exactly, our standard movie villains. Name some. But everyone knows the North Koreans don't have money for rice, let alone a satellite. So.
If it was Michael Bay, it would have been Space Al Qaeda blew up.
Yeah, exactly. The Transformers blew up the satellite. But it's probably also worth pointing out that I know it's had a lot of stick for the fact that Sandra Bullock's hair doesn't move in zero gravity, because she's evidently wearing a wig. That there have been lots of articles in several places with real life astronauts saying it's kind of the most realistic depiction of micro and zero gravity conditions they've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of that's kind of PR puff, but still you have to take it seriously as a real endorsement of the movie, I think.
She looks good in short hair, but I kind of, watching the movie, and since I'm kind of an engineer, I'm kind of thinking of all the technical kind of stuff. How are they doing that? How are they doing this? And I kind of, when I saw the short hair, my first thing that jumped to my mind is, are they doing this to keep things simple? If she had like long flowing hair, then they had to do all the CG on that. So this was a way of cutting corners, I thought, which was fine.
I think so, but I think also there is something thematic about, number one, there's obviously great echoes to Ripley in how they dress her and how they do the hair. Mm-hmm. But number two, in just making her seem more no nonsense, like she's not a conventional female heroine. She is strong, and they're going to give her a strong haircut. I like to think that it's more than just the CGI on the floating hair would have been a freaking nightmare. So.
Exactly. Did this do anything for you about the space program and things like that? I mean, did it kind of make you, we should double our space funding or things like that? Did it?
No, and the bizarre thing is, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be an astronaut, like most other kids. And then I realized I couldn't do maths, so that was game over. No, and it didn't. Like there was a documentary done by Ron Howard a few years ago, which was all about the original Apollo missions.
Mhm.
And that really made me nostalgic from the golden age of space travel and made me think, my God, we need to stop, cutting NASA's funding. In a bizarre way, this didn't, even though the imagery was beautiful. And I think that's because for me, it's not so much about space as it is about Sandra Bullock's journey. But I can totally understand if guys watch it and look at the visuals and the technology of it, and it does make them nostalgic. But it really didn't. Actually, like, it's the first time I've thought of that. It really didn't. And I'm all about space travel. But,
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of, most of the space agencies are cutting back on human space flight. Right now the only way to get to space is probably the Chinese Shenzhen and the Russian Soyuz. Falcon 9, the SpaceX company, they are developing a human, stuff to take humans up there. But basically, everybody's just cutting back on human spaceflight, and it's understandable after the space shuttle disasters. And I kind of don't see humans in space. I'm not kind of keen on people going to Mars and things like that. It's fun. Nobody's going to have moon cities and Mars cities. I'm kind of so satisfied with having robots and rovers and stuff like that being sent over there, and I think human spaceflight is very expensive, and I kind of didn't see the rewards for it too much, so I wasn't kind of But after watching this movie, I'm like, yeah, man, human spaceflight, that's awesome. Let's get back at it.
But we are the generation, right, that could conceivably go into space as just private individuals because
Yeah.
Virgin Galactic, it will happen.
Well, it's not really space what Virgin Galactic is doing. So yeah.
Well, I mean, what do you qualify as space? Just getting out of the atmosphere, or do
Oh
you think?
yeah, getting up to like where space station where ISS is at, which is at 700 kilometers. Mind me if I like Google where's ISS at. The ISS is at. I'm gonna cut this part out, of course, but
Yeah, that's what I was just
come
being
on,
quiet.
Vicky, you're failing me. It's giving me the speed and stuff like that, but not the orbit. Oh well, I failed to read at Wikipedia. I
Doesn't
failed at
Virgin
Wiki.
Galactic get you out to like proper space?
It gets you high enough so that you see the curvature of the Earth and things like that, but
That's
it's not like
bullshit. Concorde
zero.
used to do that. You
Yeah,
could
yeah, it's not real space. It's not getting you to International Space Station. It's the same orbit as the space station or anything like that. It's much below.
no.
And the
You
space
could do
station is
that.
already much lower than our, geostationary satellites and things like that. So yeah. Hi, this is Vikram from the future. Virgin Galactic Spaceship 2 goes up to an altitude of 110 kilometers or 68 miles. The International Space Station orbits around 418 kilometers or 258 miles.
Okay, well, screw that. But I'm sure someone like Elon Musk will come up with something.
Yeah, that Falcon X or SpaceX Falcon 9 rockets, they look very promising.
Yeah, I'm totally going.
And actually, if you go to the SpaceX website, there's actually price listed for each of those rockets. So if you have a
Really?
spare $70 million, you can buy yourself a rocket.
But like in absolute terms, that's not that expensive.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, they kind of listed out as saying, hey, if you want to take 5 tons, it's 70 million. If you want to take anything about 20 million, then call us.
insofar as like a Premiership footballer could totally afford that, or a hedge fund manager. I mean, that's not like insanely expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm not going to do it, but
I think the Russians charge like 20 million bucks. So with this one, you just buy yourself a rocket. But the Russians only take one person at a time. So with this
it looks
one,
awesome.
just
I'm on
buy
the
a rocket
SpaceX
and
website right now. I just totally want to do it now.
yeah, load it up with people and you're good to go.
We could like get a House Manwoody like party going on in space. That would be so cool.
So yeah, I wanted to give a couple of shout outs. First being to Chris Hartfield. He was a Canadian astronaut who was in the space ISS recently, and when he was up there, he used to put out these YouTube videos. I think the one I've seen was crying in space and what happens when you cry in space. So he puts out all these weird videos like, hey, how do you make a sandwich in space? Or sleeping instead
That's so
and things like
goofy.
that.
That's
Yeah,
so Canadian. How do you make a sandwich?
and he's become like this big celebrity because of it. Everybody's seen this. I mean, it's very popular.
But that tells you everything that's wrong with modern culture. This guy is like, you have to be like a massively qualified scientist to get into space. What's going to make him popular and adulated by the idiots in modern culture is his YouTube channel. I mean, what? Never mind his 2 PhDs and his military training and his awesome scientific mind. The man's going to make a sandwich in space. Oh.
Yeah, I think I've seen a costume where there was a kid who was dressed up as Chris Hartfield, even had his mustache and everything, a girl. So it was pretty cute. But after I watched those videos and then went and saw this movie, it's so close. I mean, they really done their research. It's something so slightly different, but they are very close. The movie is very close.
Cool. I have nothing else to say. I don't feel I was negative enough. I think we just basically sat and enjoyed it, didn't we? But it's a good movie. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I think you have to be quite curmudgeonly. I mean, I did hear like there were some people like wandering around London at the time going, in fact, it was the movie I didn't see on preview. I just saw it at the premiere. And people who'd seen it on previews, who I really admire, were tweeting and saying this movie could be better than 2001. And I just think, whoa there. This movie is not best. This is not 2001. This is not a movie that in 50 years people will be calling a classic. It's a great movie. It's one of the best of this year, but let's not get too carried away.
Yeah. To think about it, I mean, this is going to be one of my favorite movies ever. But yeah, I don't think it probably won't be as legendary as it's maybe too simple to be a legendary movie. Yeah, right? I mean.
I think it's more like Avatar, that it's a lot of fun when you watch it and it definitely pushes forward the technology. But yeah, I was thinking about this today, actually. Like, what are the other Oscar-winning hype movies that you just forget about? Like, do you remember $1 Million Baby? That that won loads of Oscars. And no one talks about that now. Dances with Wolves. No one talks about that anymore. So yeah, I mean, I think you need to put it in context.
Yeah. And it's probably also a generation thing, since all those people who were young and then when they saw 2001 and all that are now in kind of the influential places. They are the big review writers, big critiques. It's not going to be good for them. But by the time our generation kind of moves on and we take up those big spots, then movies in our generation now will be like hyped as, that was a legendary movie or something.
Oh, Jesus
I don't know.
Christ.
That's what I think.
Can you imagine like a generation that was born in the early 90s who grew up on like Revenge of the frickin' Sith? Like, saying Star Wars prequel movies are like, legendary, iconic fantasy films. That'll be the moment at which I decide to just check
Probably.
So depressing.
Yeah, some movies do transcend time, like Jaws and Star Wars and things like that. But some movies, yeah.
Yeah. Just no.
Cool. So anything else we want to talk about before we do our after show of
Okay,
One Night Marry or what? Float Away in Space.
That's going to be very quick this week.
So we got George Clooney, One Night Marry or Jettison into Space.
Exactly. No, was this not meant to be a combo with Ender's Game though, or are we not doing that?
Oh no. No. Have you seen Ender's Game?
Yeah, but I don't want to talk about it because
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It's just it's okay, So we can go straight to after show.
Yeah, we can. I was thinking mostly of doing it, clubbing Ender's Game with Thor and stuff, and doing it like in a couple of weeks from now or something.
Okay, makes sense. Have you seen Thor 2 yet?
No, I haven't seen Thor yet. Have you?
Yeah, it came up for some reason. All the movies seem to be coming out earlier in the UK at the moment.
Yeah, it's coming out next week for us, November 8th. So.
Cool. Yeah, no, I have nothing to say. You can move to close it up and move on.
I'll club it with Thor and do it. Yeah, okay. So this is our after show, I guess. So it's It's been a while since we've done or I've done One Night Marry or Jettison into Space. So let's bring it back for this. So George Clooney, One Night Marry.
I think he's a one-night guy. He's more in love with space than he'll ever be with you.
Yeah. So there was a story he was telling at the start of the movie, right? That his wife left him for somebody, or for his friends or somebody.
He's just playing himself. He's like the Stanny Ocean, really slick, really charming guy. And as we know, George Clooney just ain't the marrying kind. So, you know, in real life, as in the movies, as in our stupid game, I think he'd be fun to go out with, have a few drinks, he'd tell you some cool stories. But you know.
Yeah.
And anyway, he didn't turn up to the London Film Festival, so screw him.
Okay, and then Sandra Bullock's One Night Marry or Jettison into Space.
Mary, she's cute, isn't she? She's so lovely.
Yeah, that the imagery when she got back into the ISS, and while you guys were like comparing it to depression or rebirth and things like that, all the time I was going, wow, she's so hot.
Actually, I have to say, she turned up to the red carpet in like the shortest dress ever, and you know she obviously worked out for the film and was you know showing off the results. But she looked amazing. She probably looks the best that she's ever looked in her life, like from a physical. point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely Mary for me. After the movie, of course, because she's kind of lost all the baggage during the movie. So post movie.
Oh, that's so harsh.
Yeah. I mean, stuff she was going through because of her daughter died was like, wow, man. Yeah.
So you don't want to be with her through that shit. You just want to take her cleaned up at the.
Well, she needs like near to that experience for that to happen, you know, for her to let go, and not just one, but like a dozen of them through the movie.
Yeah, fair dues. Okay, and that's basically it. What about Apu? The third astronaut?
I don't know, he seemed annoying, so jettison.
If you marry him, you're just gonna end up running a Quickie Mart in Springfield, right? So.
Oh yeah, I just heard of this. So that during the movie there was a session when she got on the Soyuz, and she was about to, you know, she was gonna kill herself or something, or you know, she was doing this radio thing with somebody on Earth. Turns out it was an Eskimo fisherman or somebody, and Alfonso Cuarón actually, not Alfonso Cuarón, sorry, Jonas Cuarón, I think one of his relative or I don't
brother,
know.
I think.
His brother, okay, who also is a co-writer or one of the producers in the movie. He shot a separate shot for it about what was happening on Earth with the Eskimo guy and all that, with the dog and the baby and everything. And that's going to be included in the DVD as a bonus thing. So, you know, now you have an extra reason to buy the DVD to see this shot, I guess.
Yeah, but it's a mistake, right? I mean, I think that the keeping the focus in space is
Oh, yeah.
it's the secret of that success.
Right. It was very smart. To
Okay.
exclude it.
Yeah. So that's the end of the after show.
Yeah, that's the end of the after show. Short episode
It's like the
this week,
quickest after
guys.
show ever.
Cool. Oh yeah, one last thing. So if you're listening to this podcast before November 15th, the 2000 voting for the 2013 Podcast Awards is currently going on. So you guys wanna go there, check it out, see if there are any cool podcasts there, and vote for it. So yeah.
Obviously, Podcast Device and Fire is in the entertainment category, I believe.
Right.
So you know, I think we owe it to ourselves and to humanity not to let the Taylor Swift podcast win. And weirdly, you can vote every day. So
Yeah.
it's kind of really weird, but yeah, if you're fans of Podcast Device and Fire, it's worth making the effort. It's a pure numbers game, I think. So yeah, just click on every day.
Yeah, you'll make your favorite podcast hosts really happy if you have them.
Multiple award-winning, and also it's worth doing just because I want to see Ashley meet some of the other podcasters, and she said that if they win or get onto the kind of finalist ballot, she'll go down to Vegas for it. So that would be awesome balls.
Excellent. So yep, that's it for this week. Thank you for joining us, guys. Bye.